Okay, so here we are back at Jeff's shed, and you might recognise this. This is my gear change lever we're looking at in part 7, which sadly is the wrong dimension to change gear correctly. So we're just doing a little sort of experiment, rather than make a new one of these and it's also wrong, it doesn't work correctly. Just making this sort of crude extension here, and this hole is the same length away from the peg as this hole here, so it's 1 to 1. So when I change gear, move this an inch, this will move an inch. So I'm going to take this home and try it out, make sure it works okay, make sure the gear change feels good and it moves enough to actually change gear on the old iron head. And if it does, then we can either make a brand new one of these levers with the same dimensions, or possibly just maybe use something like this and bolt it and machine it such that I can reuse this old lever, or well, new lever, it's not old, it's an existing lever, on the bike, at least for the time being anyway. And then at some point in the future, when I've got time and interest, I can make a new one. We can make a new one at some point when I'm not so busy. So yeah, that's what's happening at the moment. Oh, and also, if you look behind here, we've got my old diagram when I made the brackets to hold the front mudguard on. And here's 2 more. Now these are not off the Norley. I'm actually so pleased with them. I was actually so pleased with them that I've had another pair made with slightly different dimensions, and they'll be used on another project which we'll come to later on in the year. So anyway, let's get home now and we'll see if this sort of modified lever works or not. And so let's go back and see. I now have plenty of movement there, look, and it means I can change gear correctly and the movement's about right at my foot, which is the main thing. And while initially I thought this would look absolutely awful, if we stand back a bit and look at the whole bike, then it's not quite so bad as I first imagined. And in fact, the shift rod now has a sort of angle that pretty much matches that rear silencer, so it doesn't look too bad overall. And that just goes to show that sometimes you can obsess about one particular small part of a bike and worry about it for hours and hours and hours and keep changing it. When in fact, if you stand back, look at the whole bike, it turns out you hardly notice it anyway. And so next I just need to take this apart yet again. Doesn't take long, and then I can take this lever and its little plate back to the workshop and get it shaped and drilled and make it look a bit better before it goes back on the bike for the last time. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because I don't know about you, I'm pig sick of this particular set of rear sets. I've spent far too much time on it, and yeah, I'll be happy to just get it all done. Okay, so we are back at Jeff's shed again. Here's that original gear lever, and I changed my mind. Rather than just having a additional piece bolted to it, I thought no, we'll make a brand new one. So let's mark it out now, just drilling it. Is that 13 mil. Okay, so there it is. Start of the new one. Okay, so after our tea break, you've now pretty much finished that.
2 tea breaks.
2 tea breaks, yes, I got my tea here. So we get it off here, we can see it.
All milled. What we need to do is take the little clamp off.
Yeah.
Our little clamp.
It kind of helps you still got that.
It's sat on, well it holds it, stops it from moving, and
so
that's it. Voila.
Just needs a bit of work, it's a bit sharp edges there, just to clean it up a little bit.
Just want some little bit of titty
and then I'll spend 5 million hours getting it all polished up.
Yeah, I'll put scratches in it so you can work.
On purpose, yeah. And as I say, this hole here, look, is a bit smaller than that hole there because it's the same size as that. It's 8mm, such that if I want, or I can, modify it to work at that point with the shift lever, then I can do, and then just chop off that top bit one day perhaps, and hope to make it a bit better. So that's the idea behind that. But in the meantime now, I'm going to put it together and I'm going to bloody polish it. So that's what's next. But first I've got to finish off the tail. That's right, go and drop it.
Drop me little diddly-doo
mandrel, okay. And now here we are, back at the bike yet again for a quick test fit, and this is kind of how it will look. I mean, right now it's a little bit wobbly because there's no bearing on this, but yeah, that's kind of how it might look. However, my idea was, let me just quickly take this off here, it's the wrong size, so it just goes in quite easily. If it'll work like this with the ratios I've got now, then that's great, it'll look better. I can then cut off this top bit and shape it, and we're good to go. And if not, then I've got an option of buying a new or a spare chromed front splined lever. I can then cut that in half, reduce it in size by about 1 inch, and have it re-welded, smoothed off and re-chromed, such that I can then probably run it like this because then the ratios would still be compatible. I could do that now, but the problem is, I know from experience that getting something re-chromed takes weeks and weeks and weeks, if not months, so I don't want to leave it that long before I can be sure it's okay. So that's something I might do in the future when I know all this setup works okay and I don't have to remake one of these yet again. In the meantime, I've now got to polish this up, which will take hours and hours and hours, and I can carry on with the wiring, which I've been ignoring for quite a while because I don't like wiring, and also because with the tank and the front mudguard away for paint, again that's going to be a 6 or 8 week turnaround, so it kind of takes the pressure off having to get on with it. But I must keep on pressing on because before you know it, Christmas will be here and it still won't be finished, so I need to sort of crack on with this and just plod on, well not really plod on I guess, but just keep on going even though winter's approaching and I know the bike won't be being ridden now until the spring. And a quick PS, on a very wet day, you can hear the rain outside, I've now fully polished up this lever, looks a lot better. I must say I do wish this wasn't quite so tall, but with the option of moving this lever down one hole and then cutting off this top bit, it may well look a bit better. But I can't do that until I know it works, and I can't do that until I've ridden the thing, and that will happen for quite a while. So we'll leave it as is for now, and I can move on to the next process, which is finishing off the wiring. So again, thanks for watching and cheers.